Okay, the meeting of the Auburn Industrial Development Authority on Wednesday, April 15th at 5 p.m. will come to order. Would you do a roll call vote, please? Roll call.
Mr. Dacey?
Here.
Mr. Andre?
Here.
Ms. Weber McLeod? Mr. Beer? Mr. Cuddy?
Here.
Mr. Gasper?
Here.
Mr. Gravius? Mr. Lavarnway?
Here.
Mr. Giantino?
Here.
Okay.
Hello, Roger Beer, not calling in.
Okay, Roger. Who is caller 2? Who did we miss?
Rob Boyer's on Hancock.
Oh, Rob, thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Whenever you're ready, Jim. Oh, and there's Gwen.
I can't understand.
Okay, Jim, we've got everybody except for Brandon now.
Who's talking right now?
It's just background noise.
Oh,
I'm gonna do some muting.
Okay. Samantha, do we have enough people for the minutes of the last meeting?
I believe we do, but let me just take a quick check.
We have just about everybody, so yeah, I would think so.
I think we do.
Can I have a motion on the floor to accept the meeting of last month?
I'll make a motion.
I second that motion, Terry.
Okay. Are there any changes or additions to the minutes? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions carried. Okay. Next item on the agenda is, which I don't have in front of me. I can never get the print out. Samantha, what's the next item on the agenda?
That would be the bills. And
Audit committee.
we have one bill from the Cuyahoga County Soil and Water Conservation District, and that's for mowing out at the tech park, I believe. Is that right, Tracy? Yep. Okay. And that bill is $1,358.50. The second bill included in the packet is for Buffington and Hoatland, and that is for the audit prep that was done back in December. That's $2,500.
Okay.
We did also receive.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We did receive one other invoice from Buffington and Hoatland over the weekend. I didn't know if you wanted to go ahead and discuss it now, but it's for the final audit bill, and that's $4,350.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and add that?
Okay.
Can we?
Is there a
Mr.
motion
Chair.
on the floor to accept the bills?
I'll make the motion, Ron.
Well, can we
Second.
talk about them after the motion, or do we
Well-
talk about them now?
Well, we normally talk about them after the motion, Terry.
Perfect.
Is there a second on that?
I'll second it.
Okay. All right, now discussion. I have a question on the mowing. Have we put that out for bid, or how did we arrange that?
Yeah, that's a good point.
You see your mic's off.
Sorry. Tracy, I can't hear you.
That was something that we arranged last year, arranged and approved in 2018 or 2019. It was in the fall, we made a motion to take care of that with a not to exceed of 1,500.
Is that something that's going to be ongoing that we should put out for bid?
No, it was a one-time.
Okay.
I noticed, Tracy, this is Roger. I noticed it's not in the budget for 2020. I can't recall if it was in there for 2019.
It was approved in 2019. I don't know if we put it in the budget officially for 2020. Hold on.
We didn't. So
It's
right,
not
'cause I
in the
think we
budget
approved
for-
it afterwards. I think
I
we
don't
approved
believe
it
it was
after
in the budget for 2019.
No, it wasn't in the budget for either, because I think we approved it in like November or something like that, after the budget was done.
But you're saying that that's something we don't need to budget for?
I'm saying it was approved to be added to the budget after the fact.
Yeah, but it's a one-time,
Yes,
it's not going to be ongoing.
correct.
Okay. Okay, Roger?
I guess, yes. And the other question I have on the Holton bill, Buffington and Holton bill is that, with the combined amounts, is that consistent with with their proposal? They proposed an amount.
They did come in a bit high because of the new revenue recognition rules. Those required a lot more, the work that they had to do for that required a lot more hours than they would typically do under the original proposal. So it is a little bit higher than the original proposal, but that proposal does allow for some adjustments based on things like accounting rule changes.
Okay. Do you have any idea how much it is over the original fee quote?
I can look that up.
I don't believe it's that much.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I thought they came in at about 7,000 on the fee quote, or 6,900 or 6,850 or something.
I think it's around 68.
Yeah, that
For
was right.
2019,
Pardon me?
for 2019, the total that they had provided was 6,350.
That's what we budgeted?
That's what
No,
was
that's what-
proposed.
Yeah.
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 And they're coming in at what's the two numbers combined? I should be able to 6,800 or something, right?
They came over $500.
Okay. I would say, from my experience in doing stuff like this, the 500 overage is reasonable.
Yeah, it was a lot of work.
And that's going to be ongoing with those new regs, right?
I don't think
addition-
so.
Yeah.
Huh? I would think,
Is that-
my own 2 cents, like, I would think that once we have the revenue recognition process in place, I wouldn't think there would be that much extra. It's something we can ask when we go into it next year. So.
Yeah, we're gonna be due for an RFP soon anyway. But yeah,
Really?
I think it will. Oh
I
no,
thought
maybe
they had-
next year.
They're locked in for 3 years.
Yeah, did we
Yeah.
just do it last year?
We just
Well-
did that.
Oh yeah, 2019 I think was the first.
Yeah.
2018, 2019 was the first year. So,
Yeah.
but to answer the question, I imagine the cost will still be a little bit higher, but the first year of kind of understanding the contracts and the standard contracts for IDAs and how revenue recognition plays into that was probably more than we'll see on an ongoing basis, because they had to review all of our contracts.
there
Thank
any
you.
further questions?
I received an email from a constituent, Karen Walter, who lives down near Tech Park, and I guess she requested a copy of the bill for that trimming. Did you guys receive that?
You sent me an email today, this
Yeah.
afternoon.
Okay.
So
I just
have
wanted to
not
make
sent
sure you
to
received
yet.
it.
Yep.
Okay. And her concern was that it was going to be an ongoing thing because there's wetlands there. And you said that it won't be an ongoing thing?
It will not.
Okay, thank you.
That was done at it's coming back now. Didn't we do that to look at the lay of the land, how that property, it was very difficult to tell what the contour of the land was with all the growth there?
Yeah, it was really intended to just clean up the area a little bit to allow people that might be interested in the property to actually see what it looks like. It was also mostly an invasive species that was taken down, so it was also some conservation in mind in doing it.
Yeah, it's coming back now. Okay. Are there any further questions or on the bills?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda?
The budget report.
Okay. For those of you who have access to the profit and loss and balance sheet, I'm going to go through that. And basically, my focus, since we're still relatively early into the year, would be the profit and loss for the year to date. So we have the profit and loss budget performance, which I think is about the third page from the end. And you can see that, just as a typical recap, on the far right-hand column, our annual budget of money coming in is $30,442. At this point in time, I don't really pay much attention to the year to date because it's early in the year and a lot of these things are timing. But we're planning on income of $30,442. We've received nothing to date. Okay. On the expense side, we're expecting expenses of $31,342. And in terms of what we've incurred to date, it's basically that invoice we just talked about regarding the lawn mowing, which was unbudgeted. So you can see that it's over budget now. It'll be over budget for the whole year. We have the professional services bill for Buffington and Hopeland, and some dues we paid so far this year. So right now it's been all expenses incurred in the amount of $47.50 plus. I guess we have to add the additional Buffington and Hopeland bill for those of you who's keeping score. Then you have $47.50 so far this year. We just approved the one for the other bill for Buffington and Hopeland. I think $4,200. So roughly speaking, we got about $9,000 in expenses so far this year and no income. So I'll keep you informed monthly and as to the status, and hopefully we'll watch our revenue budget to make sure that we hit it. But right now we haven't got anything in so far this year. I would ask Tracy, we still from what you can tell so far this year, we're still on track to meet our revenue projections.
It's hard to tell this year. All of our revenue comes from administrative fees from projects induced. So it will be businesses that are expanding or buying additional equipment or doing property renovations, and we'll have to see how those things progress considering the current circumstance.
Yeah, so everything's essentially halted then, right, in terms of any expansion or anything like that?
Yeah, we are still getting some inquiries from businesses that are doing things, which is great. So there is some potential, and there are still a few projects in the mix that have been ongoing for a couple of years now. So we'll depend on if those projects can get moving this year.
Okay, so we'll pay attention to that throughout the year and be aware of it, because most of our expenses are fixed. We are going to incur the expenses, I expect, and so I will keep the board apprised throughout the year of that situation.
Roger, this is John. The expenses so far is $9,000, and we're budgeted for the year for $30,000.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Can I
Thank
ask
you.
a clarifying question? This is Gwen. I want to ask Tracy a clarifying question. Tracy, when you said that the revenue projections are tentative because of the new environment, I'm assuming that there's still some revenue coming in, correct?
The revenue is entirely based on projects happening. So if there are no projects, there is no revenue.
Okay, that's what I wanted to understand.
Yep.
And
This is Roger again. It's a good question, and I guess I would say, just to make sure I'm covering all the bases, you can see our expense budget for the year is $31,342, and that actually we're going to incur something closer to probably $33,000, given the property maintenance expense, which is unbudgeted, and the $500 extra billing on the accounting side. So, so I think it's a point well raised, is that, and it may be a little slightly premature, but we're putting ourselves on notice that we have to watch this. If we get to a certain point halfway through the year or something, or let's say into the midsummer or late summer, and we'll just have to assess what the probabilities are in terms of revenues coming in.
And I think there are some conversations that this group can have about how to, how to look at fee structures or other ways to structure incentives. We can only do certain types of incentives, but there may be a conversation to be had about, under the current circumstances, adjusting some of those structures to make project inducement more likely. So that might be something that we want to have a conversation about in the coming months.
Okay, thank you.
any further questions? There's a motion on the floor. All those in favor of accepting the bills? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions carried. Tracy, now might be a good time. Do we have any possible projects or projects that have come up lately that we should be looking at?
Well, there's the one you sent me yesterday.
That you can talk about.
Well, I mean, so Courier is still in the mix. That's one we've been talking about for 3 years now. I know that, they have their own challenges right now, and just like everybody else, but they've been working on putting that deal together for some time now. So it's not impossible that that project can come for application this year, even if it doesn't necessarily start this year. It's possible the application could come this year.
Are they in production? Are they in production right now?
I believe they're in partial, but I'm not positive.
Thank you.
So
I think that they're building something, a holder for one of the testing kits. It's a well or something that they're building for them that I'm aware of, but I don't know of anything else.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
they
they're
had been.
not on production now. That's why I was getting at. So
They had been increasing their capacity for medical production prior anyway, so they did have some capacity to do that type of work, from what I understand, and so they may be doing some of that work at this point. But again, I don't know the details of their current operation. But so there are projects like that that have been on the books and kind of working through for a couple years now that may come to fruition this year, but it really just depends on how everyone comes out of the financial situation and if those deals are impacted by the current circumstances.
Can you say anything about the old fish hook plant? Tracy?
Which one's that?
The one up on Grand Avenue that sits down behind the M&T Bank?
Oh, the what is that called? Yeah. Last I knew, there was a pending purchase offer on it, but it hadn't closed. So I don't have many details on it, no.
Okay.
But it wasn't technically on the market anymore.
The building itself?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a difficult time to be talking about that.
Yeah,
About any.
Yeah, no, there are some businesses that are thinking about moving forward and looking at opportunities to move forward with their planned expansions. And, you know, throughout the county, we're seeing that some of those projects are still moving. The timelines might just be a little bit different on some of them.
Okay. What's the next item on the agenda?
That would be the CETA staff update.
Okay.
So our team has been, I mean, it's pretty much similar to what we talked about last month. We've been in contact with many businesses, over, I think, something like 120 businesses throughout the county. Someone from our staff has been in contact with one way or another over the last month. And we have about 21 applications to the microloan program in process right now. We've had, I think, 4 approved so far. 2 have been dispersed and 2 are waiting on closing documents. 3 more applications have been processed and are waiting on approval. And then we have a bunch more that we're still doing underwriting for. So we are trying to get that money out the door and into the hands of businesses. I believe about 60 to 65% of the businesses we're talking to are in the city, and the rest are throughout the county. And they have a lot of varying needs. Everyone needs working capital to cover operating costs, payroll, but some businesses are different than others in that capacity. Some businesses are shut down but need to still pay their rent while they're shut down, and other businesses are still operating and trying to make ends meet despite having reduced revenue. There are a wide range of financial needs. So we're just trying to help businesses through which programs are the best suited for them and help them try to understand what those processes look like. They're also reporting a need for marketing and promotion assistance. Some have brought up ideas of local procurement policies and trying to advocate for opening up those procurement policies for municipalities and public authorities and those types of things so that our local municipal entities can really prioritize local procurement coming out of this. And that's something that's been being talked about on the regional level as well. There's a regional group of partners that are meeting to talk about policy and advocacy and resources and what we're going to need coming out of this into the economy. So we're having those conversations, figuring out the best way to advocate for the right tools and trying to work as a team and as a region, because what happens in Onondaga is going to affect us here in Cayuga.
Tracy,
what type of businesses are applying?
There's a pretty good range. Let me just open the list here real quick. So it's a range from kind of more retail oriented to services. So there's a few retailers, a few service companies, a couple of food and beverage, maybe 3 food and beverage type businesses, construction. There's a gym in here. There's a couple of pet care companies. So a couple of small companies that do grooming and dog walking and things like that. In the survey we did to get some of that feedback from businesses, I noticed that we got a lot of salons and like health and beauty type businesses. A lot of those folks are sole proprietors and they're just not allowed to be open. So they're really, that kind of jumped out to me as its own category in all of this. But yeah, so I would say mostly kind of retail service oriented businesses for the most part.
Thank you.
What would be the range of the request, the dollar range?
So our program is only going up to 5,000 right now, and most of them are requesting the 5,000. But in the survey, there was a pretty big range from a need of, maybe $1,000 to all the way up to maybe 500,000. So it's a pretty wide range. Most of them were in the kind of 5,000 to 25,000 range.
But you're only doing 5,000 max, I know you said, right?
Yeah, our program is only doing only going up to 5,000 right now.
is that 5,000 per request?
Yes.
Really? How much? Just as a refresher for me, this is Roger. How much? How big is our loan fund or grant fund?
So CEDA had $12,000 to start with, and we received a loan from the Cayuga County Development Corporation for $100,000. So that brought our loan fund up to about $110,000, $112,000.
Okay. Are you still taking applications?
We are.
Okay.
So the requests that we have are probably close to the loan fund the size of the loan fund we have, but I think it would be possible for us to get additional funding, and not all of these will probably request the full 5,000. So we would still take applications. One thing that we're being careful about now is that if someone has applied for the Paycheck Protection Program, we need to make sure that the uses of our funds aren't overlapping with that program, because we don't want to jeopardize the forgivability.
I wanted to ask you that. Are you providing guidance for them on the PPP?
To an extent, we're helping them understand how the program works, but ultimately they do need to apply through a bank.
And the economic injury disaster loans, are you helping with any of them?
Yep. Yeah, we've been working, our folks have been working with people on what that program looks like and how to apply for it, and just understanding the terms.
Has anybody had any success? I've helped with some clients, and the SBA just really does not seem to be equipped to, or they haven't sent out much. They haven't sent out much in the way of money, from what I've seen.
Yeah, The disbursement has been slow. There have been some funds dispersed in our area under that program, but they're working through them as in the order that they were received, and they're just backlogged. I got an update that showed how much money had been approved and dispersed in different states, so I can send that out if you'd like.
No, that's fine. I have not, people I've worked with have not had success. They had originally, and maybe I can just test this with you, but the original information we had was that grants, loans that would not have to be repayable would be available in the amount of $10,000 and would be available within 3 days. And that has
not happened.
Yes. And it's been modified that I think what they're doing now is providing funds based on the number of persons you have on payroll, up to $1,000 per employee, up to $10,000.
Yes. Yeah, that's how they're making those advanced decisions, but even the advances have been slow to trickle out.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Quite a group there is in Washington this time. So.
Anybody have
Tracy?
any further questions of Trace?
Tracy, could you talk a little bit more about, I guess, what the goal with the procurement policy changes would be?
I think the goal would be to allow, so right now, under kind of the public procurement from the state, there's some flexibility in terms of service contracts, but in terms of like physical goods, you have to go with the lowest bid. And so the idea would be to say like, okay, if I can get the same product locally for a small amount more, I'd rather get it locally and support our local businesses right now than send that money to California or China or wherever. We want to keep, the goal would be to encourage more local procurement by municipalities.
Okay.
And keep that money here in the community.
If you need help from a government standpoint there, like a resolution or something of support, let us know and we'll get a resolution on the floor.
Regional group is looking at it, and I think by the end of the week we're going to have some set of policies that we'd like to push forward, and so I think by next week we'll have an idea of what that looks like.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that. Is anybody else have any questions?
No, this is Gwen. I was just having a thought, Tracy, that I think it's important to really distinguish as this is rolling out the difference between this being a recommendation and the desire for there to be a set of policies that really compel people to do business in this requested way. Because this could become a marketing campaign, or this could become, as Jimmy's saying, getting some resolutions. I think that if we're serious about this and can get a critical mass of people to be about it, I think we should really try to formalize a process or a way to make sure that that comes to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and I think it's a combination. Something like a local procurement would be a combination of policy and marketing. So I think you're right that it needs to kind of go through the two paths. But I do want to make sure that we're doing it in collaboration with our regional partners, because that's the way to make it successful. Because if we're all coming out and saying this is what we want, and we're all have the same messaging, to your point, it will definitely have a stronger impact.
I agree.
Anybody else? Okay. I'd like to put a motion on the floor to appoint Jim Giannatino to the Finance Committee to fill a vacancy. Is there a second, please?
I second.
Right.
Everybody
now the floor's open for discussion.
Do I get a say?
No.
Everyone but you, Jimmy.
He's a nice guy. He can count.
You
One or
always
two.
gonna say, we'll listen to you.
I'm good with it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Extensions carried. Thank you.
Jim, while we're at it, I don't think we officially put Gwen on the governance committee last month, so we might want to do a motion for that too.
Okay,
Just
I'll make a
run out
motion
that.
to put Gwen on the governance committee. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Jimmy Latino. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things that we've discussed is the fact that the committee meetings before the regular meeting, a lot of times, all the time, we don't need the full half hour for those meetings. So we're going to change that till 4:45 for the meeting to start and see how that works out in the future. And if it works out well, then we'll continue that. We're flexible on that.
We might need the governance committee meetings to be a little longer because we have some good work to do there. So
Oh, we don't on the finance committee?
no. No, not really. No
I appreciate your honesty. Is there any further discussion? Is there a motion?
Oh, I don't.
Do we have anything else we need to discuss? Tracy?
So the last thing on the agenda is we were going to start going over the different projects that are existing. Do we want to go over a couple of them today before we sign off?
Sure.
So we did want to, just as we were talking last month, we realized that there's just a lot of projects and not everybody knows what all of them are, and it would just be a good refresher to go through some of them. So in the packet, we included the last pilot disbursement report from 2019. And that just is a list of all the pilots that are existing. The only exception is that Prison City was induced after and is going to go on this list later. So as many of you know, Prison City is building an expansion. It's a new facility on North Street that will enable them to significantly increase their production, and they're also going to create an event space there. That pilot was just induced last year, so it'll come on the list for 2020. I think it was about a $9 million project. Is that right, Sam? Or did it go down from there?
I believe
$9 million project. So that was a good one. Auburn Community Hotel. That is the Hilton Garden Inn. So when that project happened, there was a pilot put into place for 25 years. They're currently in year 8, and that was what it is. That's the Hilton. Any questions on the Hilton? I kind of blew through that one quick because it's the Hilton. Bluefield Manor is a senior housing, a nonprofit senior housing facility at the kind of southwestern corner of the city. They're towards the end of their pilot. They are looking at what their options are in terms of their property tax liability. I think they're trying to, since they're a nonprofit, figure out how to be exempt from those taxes moving forward. So I think that's why we haven't heard from them in a while, but that was to meet a need for senior housing in the community back when it was built.
Trace, this is Ron. I thought they dropped that request.
Yeah, we haven't heard from them for a while. I don't think they haven't officially said we're good yet, but we have not heard back from them in quite some time.
Right.
Yeah, I think they're just working through the legal paperwork and figuring out what they're eligible for and what they're not. But It's been a while since they've come to us.
The last time we talked to them, we gave them all the options, so that they, that they have available to them. Have we heard anything from Nucor lately?
Yeah, he actually just reached out to me today. They're finalizing an application, and so we should have that for next month.
Okay.
I guess I'll ask, are there specific projects that people want to know more about before I just go through the whole list?
Just as identifiers, for instance, Calamar, who they are.
What's the name of that? Is that the
RM11A Holdings.
Auburn
that's Auburn
Grove, isn't
Grove?
it?
Okay,
Yeah.
that's Grove. All right.
Yep, that's Grove. Central Building LLC is the Health Central, the old middle school. Middle school? Is it a middle school or a high school?
High school,
Well, it was a middle school.
not for long.
West Garden Street. The old school on West Garden Street.
Oh, that was a high school, yeah.
Yep, high school.
Yeah, it was a high school for 5-6 years. It was an elementary school. Most people don't remember that. Dia and I do, because her and I both went there
Oh,
for 5 or 6 years. They used the new part, couple floors for elementary after they closed Fulton.
yeah. So that's Health Central. That pilot has been through a few renditions. It was originally, I think, a 15-year pilot and then a 25-year pilot, and now it's a 30-year pilot. So they are still building out that third floor and do have some space to fill in there, but for the most part, otherwise are full. JBJ is kind of that East Hill and John Street area. That's the Bartolotas. They own a number of properties on East Hill and on John Street, and those are all included in this pilot. PBMM is Vitale. They own a property where one of the trucking companies are. Sorry. Bar Transportation is on that property. But it's Vitale that owns it. WST33 is Plaza of the Arts.
I didn't hear what you said. It's what?
WST33 is Plaza of the Arts on Genesee Street.
Thank you.
So that's Dan Soul's company for that project. I think the rest of these are Seminary Commons is the area over on Seminary where the public safety building is going to be going. I won't say theoretically. I think that's actually a thing now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's three parcels over there.
That was split, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, that closing happened at the end of last year, beginning of this year.
Although this is not a good time to discuss auditing these pilots to ensure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. But my question would be, when was the last time, pardon me, when was the last time we did audit them?
What do you mean by audit?
To make sure that if there's a caveat in there about employment, that they're following that.
Well,
that sort
we
of thing.
get their employment numbers every year. We have to do that for the annual reporting to the state. So annually, we get their employment numbers, preferably verified by an NY45. So that's how we can compare to what their goals were in the pilot. So that's done annually. In terms of investment, that usually comes at the front end of a pilot to verify that they spent the amount that they said they were going to, and what have you. But yeah, so annually we get job numbers. We get from some companies will give us sales tax generation, so we can see how that's offsetting the benefit that was provided. So it's just different things and if they're in a sales tax exemption, if they have a sales tax exemption, we get that number every year too, to make sure that they're staying under what they were approved for.
Okay. Although this is a difficult time, you know, that's something that we certainly can't be expecting them to meet those requirements at this time, but we don't know how long this is going to last either.
Can
I
I
just
add,
We may have, I'm sorry, Bill, what?
I agree with what Jim is saying. And did any of us notice in the paper when I called them Save a Little, not Save a Lot. When Save a Little closed, they said they had 7 employees. If I remember right, when we did their paperwork, they said they'd have 30 or 32, which I knew in a store that small was outrageously high. But there's so many, and I'm not going to get on a soapbox rant, so calm down. There's so many on this list that never should have been pilot agreements, and a lot of them, community hotel, never ever should have been. Bluefield Manor never should. This is just my personal opinion. There's so many on these. If you're getting like community computer, if you're providing jobs to the community, that's one thing. Gen West, but like what as much as I love the family, Logan Lofts, you know, that whole East Hill and John Street, you know, that was never should have happened. Just my personal opinion. I think when we do these in the future, we have to be more careful. It's an industrial development authority, and I think we have to get away from hotels and, you know, millionaires getting another million. Just my personal opinion, but I agree with Jim. I do think we need to audit when things get better. We do need to audit and see if they're living up to their end of the pilot agreement.
Well, you know, Bill, I understand what you're saying, but if we were to follow what the original charter said compared to what's being allowed now by all of the agencies, we'd be playing second fiddle all the time. So I think we have to adjust, and it may be a misnomer. Maybe the name needs to be changed. I don't know, but there are some projects that are being done that if we didn't do them, they were going to be picked up by somebody else, and so, you know, it was advantageous for us to do them. And, you know, a part of the overall scenario, if you will, is that if you want to have industry in your community, you have to provide good housing for people to come in and live when they move here, when the industry starts. So it's all part of the big picture.
Yeah, I understand, Jim. I understand.
So I think there is a place to, a lot of IDAs are having that conversation about, you know, industry means something different now than it did in the 70s. So having a conversation about what current priorities are within the confines of the law and saying like, okay, yes, we want to see jobs, but if we don't see jobs, if we see these other set of benefits to the community, that's still okay. So that might be a conversation that this group wants to have so that moving forward, there's a clear set of what are those additional community benefits that might induce a project as opposed to kind of taking it case by case.
I think the control there, quite possibly in our discussion, we should look at the length of a pilot for specific entities that come in looking for a pilot. So, I mean, that may be the control. It's something to look at.
Tracy, I had a question, a couple questions. Just curiosity. Tessie Plastics, that's in their 17th year out of 20. Just as a refresher for me, when they took over the old air conditioning company down on North Division Street, was that kind of rolled into this particular pilot?
Yeah, so the 17 out of 20 is actually when they bought that, they agreed to just finish out the existing McQuay pilot. So really,
Okay,
they're
gotcha.
only in year 3 or 4, but it was the last few years of the
So it was
existing
essentially a
20-year
name
pilot.
change then. It was
Yeah.
McQuay. Okay.
Yep,
And,
and they're having conversations about what they want to do with that facility, so they may come back and make an additional investment and have a request at that point. But for right now, they're just finishing out the pilot that was already there.
Okay. There's a small one above. I wanted to just write down which one. Carolina Eastern Vale. What is that?
That's Caravelle. It's the seed and fertilizer company over on Columbus. Is that on Columbus?
Yeah.
What's their name again?
Carolina Eastern Vale or Caravelle.
Oh, okay. So fine. Okay. Sorry.
Yep.
Thanks.
It's where the old Agway plant
Yeah.
used.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
So if there are others of these that you would like more specific information on, you can go ahead and send me those questions or requests, and we can go over in more detail some of these projects at future meetings. But hopefully that at least gets everybody in line on what each of these projects actually is.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of new people on the board. I think it's a good time to sit down and get their ideas on where we're at and where they think we should be going. I think we should all know what other people are thinking. Probably would be a good idea to dedicate some time from each meeting to take one part of the pilot and discuss that. It's not something that, I don't think we, at this point, well, definitely at this point, we can't have a work session. It'd be very difficult to do that, but we can do a small part at the meetings for a while and just get some thoughts out there of where people are coming from and why they feel that way. Is everybody in agreement with that?
I agree. Yes.
Sure.
Sounds good.
And I think having that kind of a conversation would feed well into a conversation that the governance committee should be having, and they can take that input and start to develop some guidance too.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody have anything else they'd like to bring up?
Just real quick, if I could, because we spoke about assistance to local businesses, it was reported, I believe last week or the week before, that the city of Auburn's receiving $500,000 in additional CDBG money. We're still learning what we're going to be able to use that money for. We're hoping to have a conversation tomorrow night during council to give some direction, to find out what Jenny Haynes has been able to ascertain from HUD. So there'll be more to come on that. And I did reach out to Chris Courier, and Courier Plastics has been deemed essential, and they are operational right now. So that's good news.
Very good. Thank you for the info.
Yeah. Very good.
Motion, please.
So
Ron,
moved.
so moved.
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
There.
Thank you,
We
everyone.
have-
Have a good night.
Take care.
Stay safe.